All right, ladies and gentlemen. So this is gonna be a third part. Where's my stuff at? Okay, here we go. The Mak'Gora dueling. We're gonna do a TLDR on all the classes, their strengths, their weaknesses, what they usually try to do, how to counter them, yada yada yada, all that sort of stuff. So I'm getting reports that in the current Mak'Gora tournament that's going on, the hardcore tournament, you're not allowed to gear swap. That's going to make it really easy to decide what kind of gear you want to wear for these tournaments. The answer is going to be stamina, spirit, the vast majority of the time. If you can't gear swap, they're literally telling you can't gear swap even between duels, which means the moment I hear that, you can't do any kind of resistance gearing because resistance gearing is a specific thing. But in unrestricted dueling in general, resistance gear is a thing, so that's going to come up. But if they're telling you you can't gear swap for the entirety of a tournament, you just have to sit there in the same gear the entire time. Stamina, spirit gear, no joke, is going to be by far your best gearing possible. All right, so let's move on. All right, so warrior strengths. They got diamond flask, and you don't know how diamond for a warmer. If you don't know how diamond flask gear works, oh man, I guess they can't use it in the tournament because there's no gear swapping. So I guess they can't use diamond flask. But Diamond Flask is even terrifying in a no gear swapping scenario because they'll put on a shield and a weapon with a bunch of plus healing on it, pop their Diamond Flask, and then swap to normal weapons and come at you. And even then, that's like something stupid like 4,000 healing over the course of 60 seconds of Diamond Flask. Absolutely insane. All right, so they are super dangerous in unrestricted duels with free action potions and a few sunders on you. So, for example, when they have recklessness and so forth, some of their weaknesses are they don't generate any rage when they're bubble shield when bubble shields are active. I've never actually tested this. This is just me remembering things from like classic World of Warcraft all the way back in the day, private servers and so on. Maybe I should get off my butt and test it one of these days. But to my knowledge, if you're like a priest and you put power word shield on yourself, until the warrior breaks that shield, they can't actually generate any rage. Warriors only generate rage off of their white attacks. So one of the things that we'll generally do if we have like an arena grandmaster trinket or something of the kind is we'll watch the warrior's rage bar. And if they're rage, but they all of a sudden they whirlwind and mortal strike you, and their rage bar drops to like 10 rage, you just pop a bubble shield, whatever. So that would be Arena Grandmaster trinket. That would be the Arathi Basin reward trinkets because they're like physical damage absorption shield, Burrower Shell trinket. All that stupid stuff, and the next thing you know, the warrior just doesn't get to generate any rage for like a million years. So as a warrior, you're supposed to hold your rage for when the bubbles come, and then when the bubbles come, you dump your rage to pop the bubbles as quickly as possible, and so you can let your white attacks generate rage. All right, cool. May or may not be a thing. Haven't actually tested it. I've seen some weird stuff in dueling tournaments, which makes me cock my head and go, "Are we sure? Like, do you actually generate rage off of bubble shields? Like, what?" But I haven't looked into it too terribly deeply because I'm a paladin. I don't care. Warriors just laugh at them, and they put on a shield. I laugh at them. They die. Like, who cares about this? All right. Easily snared, kited, and killed. So they have rage generation issues. They're easily snared, kited, and killed when no free action potion and armor hurts them super, super bad because of how their rage mechanic works. There's other little weaknesses to them, but we'll get into that. So here's their strengths. Strengths are in purple. So strengths are in green. Red is their weaknesses. Purple is their general, like what they're actually going to try to do to kill you. And then blue is how we counter them. That's how I basically color coded this stuff. So they're going to come at you with like a free action potion, recklessness, and diamond flask. And they are first based burst. What? Huh? I don't know what I'm trying to type there, but basically they're trying to burst you out of existence, and that's pretty much their only win condition. Why is this? Well, when free action potion is on cooldown for them, they're so easily kiteable by just about any class in the game, with the sole exception of like paladin. They're even easily kiteable by other warriors. That they basically they're absolutely terrible outside of a free action potion. They're known as one of the worst duelers in the game for this reason. But in no unrestricted dueling, like dear God, they're actually monsters. Free action potion and recklessness are actually really, really, really hard to deal with for most classes unless you have specifically a dispel, and you're gonna have so many buffs on you as a warrior in unrestricted dueling circumstances that it's not that the odds of them being able to dispel off your recklessness potion before or free action potion before you get all over them is nightmare fuel. Once they're physically on top of you and they have their target slowed, they become significantly less. It's only snares that really affect them. So, for example, their weakness. You'll notice here, I said kited and killed, snared, kited, and killed. You'll notice I didn't say they're weak against slows. Warriors aren't actually weak against slows as long as they can put a slow on their enemy, right? So it's like, oh, I got my enemy slowed. I'm physically on top of them. He slows me, like a shaman, for example. A warrior can jump all over a shaman and stick to them like glue because the shaman slows them and they slow the shaman and they're just stuck there in melee for a million years. It's only snares that warriors really hate. And that's primarily what free action potion is there, giving the middle finger to. All right, so how do you counter them? When they're using a free action potion, they're usually, believe it or not, they actually need some other speed boost to go with that. Maybe that's what I'm trying to write here. Free action potion, diamond flask, and first base burst, whatever. They need a speed thing here for the warrior. Because if they don't rocket boot along or nifty stopwatch along with the free action potion, it becomes very easy for their enemies to likewise free action potion, so they aren't able to be slowed, and to use a speed boost to run away, right? Basically, the major negative to needing free action potion is that your enemy still has a potion they can use, and if that's something as simple as a swiftness potion, that could be a problem if you already haven't jumped on them using charge or intercept. But if you do get on top of them with intercept and you do get a hamstring on them, the next best thing, of course, is for your enemy to just free action potion and or to already have free action potion active because you free action potion, so now they can't be slowed, you can't be slowed. You can't be stunned, they can't be stunned, you can't be snared, they can't be snared, and it just comes down to who the hell has the better speed boost. So that's one way to do it. Hopefully the warriors don't mess that up. But rocket boots can be a fickle mistress, and that's just how it goes. If you have to sit there and deal with the warrior's nonsense, like if you have to actually take what's about to happen to you on the chin, the Stone Scale Eel Potion, the plus 2k armor pot is really, really good. Highly advised you actually pre-pop that for the duel. With a warrior, other things to pre-pop, of course, are major fire protection potion for obvious reasons because it just helps a warrior with their burst. How do I put this? I honestly think if you're not wearing rocket boots versus a warrior, you're asking to die. Like, that's probably the TLDRs. If you're not using goblin rocket boots versus a warrior, you're probably asking to die. Because all the warrior has to do is he has to find his damn free action potion, he has to find his recklessness, or just be a damn warrior and to jump on you, and if you rocket boot, he rocket boots, and the next thing you know, things are going to get real frisky between the two of you. Also, Rocket Helm is actually really, really good because that's one of the only ways I think you can actually CC a warrior while free action potion is active. Mind control cap, of course, is also there and potentially viable. All right, let's move on. All right, rogues. Very scary, especially with Thistle Tea. Super dangerous with free action potion, living action potion, restoration potion. They are basically like warriors, but either faster or slower depending upon the circumstances. But their playstyle is almost identical to warriors. They really, really need to kill people inside of a burst. You'll see their weaknesses down here are like 90% of the damage is energy based and CD based. So when they're low energy or they're low on cooldowns, they're nowhere near as scary as when they actually have all of their cooldowns. So the best way to deal with a rogue is just to gear to survive their nonsense And once you survive their nonsense and their CDs start going on cooldown and they start having issues, then you can even consider going offensive against them. The only other way to really go against them is to they're very susceptible to stuns. Rogues have no way of getting out of stuns with the exception of using their potion, specifically a living action or a free action potion. Once stunned, they have no way of actually getting out of it other than living action potion. So they either need a preemptively free action potion, which will give them 30-second stun immunity, or they have to living action potion out of the first stun that comes their way. They are super susceptible to stuns, and because of this, they have some major kiting issues, if that makes any sense. So how do we counter them? Most heavily armored classes can actually easily counter rogues just by stacking a shit ton of armor. Finding your damn 2K armor pot, major healing potions. Rogues hate major healing potions. They hate a bunch of things. They really don't like fire or nature protection potions pre-popped but before a duel. Like, god damn, do they not like those? Because a lot of their killing burst is actually fire damage. We're talking like Goblin Mortar, Goblin Sapper, Goblin Bomb Dispenser. Let's see. Gear swapping is a really big deal versus rogues. You preferably want to be unkillable while they have all their CDs, and then once things start slowing down and they try to kite you out or something like that, you can swap over to whatever gear you want to try to finish them off. Let's see. Oh, the other two things interesting about these guys is that even though they can kick, it is 100% worth your while to make them kick. The reason for this is because for rogues, kicking you costs 10 energy, which is basically the same as you getting a heal off. And for warriors, them kicking you and them hamstringing you costs them 10 rage, which is also the same as you basically getting a heal off. So definitely make them use their energy when they don't want to have to use their energy. You heal, you make them kick you. You heal them, you make them kick you. You make these jackasses kick you. All right. Best thing to do against rogues, honestly, is whatever's going to cause you to survive a warrior popping free action potion and recklessness will probably cause you to survive a rogue doing something similar. So, for example, kiting out their nonsense. Like, let's say you PvP trinket their stun and you just book it off into Narnia. One thing that really comes to mind is the restoration potion. You can look it up. Rogues absolutely despise restoration potions, I do believe. I could be wrong about that. I would actually have to try to look that up on like a Wowhead or something like that. Let me pause the video and pull up restoration potion real fast. Oh, are we doing this again? Yeah. The moment I type P, it always... I hate it. Alright, where's restoration? Oh, Sean. Come on, you can do it. What the... Rest. Restorative? Restore... There we go. Jesus. Restorative potion. Thank you. Alright, restorative potion removes one magic, curse, poison, and disease effect on you every 5 seconds for 30 seconds. Magic, curse, poison, disease effect on you every 5 seconds for 30 seconds. Paladins with this thing, we use it to kill mages. Mages die screaming if you have a restoration potion because, you know, they can't sheep you basically for 30 seconds without it popping pretty damn quickly. Warlocks hate it for a variety of reasons. Everybody hates this damn thing. It's not removing stun from you, but it makes you kind of immune to blinds, which is really annoying. The only other thing is the Scarab Husk shield. Scarab Husk. Husk. Alright, I'm going to search Husk. It doesn't have enough armor to really be a Black Husk shield. Doesn't have enough armor to really talk about it. You get this off of a rare spawn in the cave in wetlands. There we go. A spider deep in the cave in wetlands. Attempts to cure one use. It's a shield that has an on-use effect. Attempts to cure one poison effect on the target and one more poison effect every 2 seconds for 8 seconds, 5-minute cooldown. Haven't really found a use for that, but it does exist, so keep that in mind. Just being a dwarf, rogues hate just being a dwarf, Jesus. Rogues can actually be a rather scary matchup, so you need to have a plan versus them. Thistle Tea is no joke. I'm not entirely sure if Thistle Tea shares a cooldown with the free action and living action potions, but if it does, or if it doesn't, God help you. Need to have a plan for dealing with rogues. Rogues really struggle to kill people if you're allowed to do anything before you die. Because the sheer act of you being able to do something as a class usually means you're going to find your major mana potion, you're going to find your whipper root tuber, and you're going to gain a lot of HP, and rogues absolutely hate it when people start healing themselves. Or if you're a shaman, you have like a tremor, or a shaman, you nature swiftness, or if you're a druid and you whatever their equivalent of nature swiftness is, they just boom, you just heal a bunch of HP, and they're like, God damn it. Or if you're like a paladin and you just Edward the Odd them, and then you just heal back to full. Like any kind of healing you're doing while a rogue is attacking you is extraordinarily detrimental to the rogue's win rate, if that makes any sense. Kiting is fine, but they've got they've got the sprint, and their sprints remove them from slows when spec'd or some crap like that. So it's kind of annoying to try to kite them. Usually, you just have to like suffer their shenanigans and outlive them, and then when they start running low on CDs and stuff, you can turn around and start punching them in the dick. All right, mage. Um, sheep, eat, drink, burst, rinse and repeat till critical strike chance kills enemy. So the mage's win condition basically centers around its critical strike chance. They will burst on you. I have an entire video that, but keep in mind that the video is paladin focused. But I have an entire like hour-long video talking about how exactly to be unkillable as a paladin to priests on Era, despite the fact that you're running around in almost pure DPS gear. Some of it has to do with fire resistance, but most of it has to do with just knowing how to move against a mage and knowing how their burst actually works. Generally speaking, however, they have about 10 cough for a sec there. Generally speaking, they have about 10 seconds to try to burst you out inside of the counter spell. Like, obviously, right? Certain other classes have other win conditions against them, but generally speaking, they're trying to burst you within the confines of a of a counter spell. The other important thing to note is just how much of their burst is actually fire damage, and it's very easy. Like one thing about everybody's burst in Classic World of Warcraft, it is I talked about this in part 1. It is extremely fire damage based centric. Why? Because it's always going to be the same. It's always going to be Goblin Mortar combined with Goblin Bomb Dispenser, because Goblin Bomb Dispenser is the only trinket in the entire game that is a burst trinket that doesn't share any cooldown with any other burst trinket in the entire game. Goblin Mortar is just a well-rounded offensive and defensive monster on a relatively short cooldown, so that those two are going to go together. And then because you're using Goblin Mortar, which has a stun and it has a bunch of damage associated behind it, you don't need to use a Thorium Grenade anymore. Next thing you know, you can use a Goblin Sapper Charge. So bursting always, the best burst in the impossible game, the best burst possible in the entire game is always going to involve 3 things: Goblin Sapper Charge, Goblin Mortar, and Goblin Bomb Dispenser, which can all be in your face at a moment's notice. Right? We clear on that? Cool. That's a lot of fire damage. Rogues, warriors will drop a lot of fire damage on you. Rogues will drop a lot of fire damage on you. Priests will drop a lot of fire damage on you. Mages will drop a lot of fire damage on you. They're the 2 highest bursting classes. Okay, that's not true. The 3 highest bursting classes in the game are Mage, Elemental Shaman, and Destro Warlock. Guess which one of those 3 doesn't actually have fire damage in their burst? None of them. Cool? We cool with that? And then everybody else's burst in the game has fire damage anyways because of Thorium Grenades and Sapper Charges and Goblin Wooders and all that stuff, right? What am I trying to tell you here? Fire resist is actually a really big deal in Classic WoW. If you are a serious PvPer and you do not know how fire resist works, if you have not watched my video on fire resist, you are doing something wrong. The TLDR on fire resist is basically this: Once you start getting above about 100 fire resistance or 120 fire resistance, somewhere around there, it completely pushes off 0% resist from the table. Meaning that every time a fire spell hits you, it's going to be 25% resisted at a minimum. At an absolute minimum. And since everybody's burst in the entire fucking game has fire resist behind it, not trying to get fire resist on your character is usually kind of stupid. I don't know about Mak'Goras, but generally speaking, as a general rule in PvP, not having fire resist means you better have something else you're doing, specifically like trying to burst people out of existence using X, Y, and Z. We're not doing a fire resist thing. Blah 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 blah. Right? From the word go, you can easily get plus 20 fire resist to helm, plus 25 fire resist to pants. These come at the expense of 100 HP to head and pants. Which may or may not be better for you when trying to counter resistances. For Paladin, it's not even a question because those two enchants plus our Fire Resist aura gets us to 100. You throw 15 Fire Resist or whatever on your cape, and the next thing you know, you've already hit the break point of pushing 0% resistance off, and you're significantly harder to kill in a burst just because everybody's burst has fire resist. Next thing you know, you start adding other bits, on my gearing, it's like most people's tier 1 and tier 2 sets have fire resist on them. The Onyxia Tooth Pendant, which is an amazing neck piece early on, has fire resist. Fire resist is a weird stat in classic World of Warcraft because it's just tacked on to gear that's already pretty damn good gear. It's not like the other resistances where it's like, oh, you want resist on your gear, you have to sacrifice stats. You want this resist, you have to sacrifice stats. You want that resist, you have to sacrifice stats. Fire resist is just on gear, seemingly for no fucking reason. It would be gear you'd wear anyways. And then when you examine the benefit you get from fire resist, anyways, I'm going off on a fire resist. Just know that versus mages, it is really, really good. So weak to resist and HP stacking. Mages are extremely weak to resistance gear and HP stacking. They are particularly weak to fire resist stacking. Why is this? Because just like fire resist is a special boy in classic World of Warcraft, frost resist is the other special boy in classic World of Warcraft. No matter how much frost resistance you have, so let's say you have 200 frost resistance, which is a 50% damage reduction. You never see 25, 75, or 50% resists. Frost resist is always binary. It's always 100% resisted or 0% resisted and nothing in between. Nothing in between, which means by the time, if you have 200 frost resist, it's literally going to be a coin flip whether that frost spell does full damage or no damage to you whatsoever. All right, we clear on that? That means that while fire resist has some very, very powerful advantages, fire resist has very, very powerful advantages. Frost resist actually kind of sucks because it's got this binary thing going on. It's either 0% or 100%, which means you really need to stack it. Which means 300 frost resist is doing the same job as 200 fire resist. You start factoring in the loss of stats, and the next thing you know, it's like, even against frost mages, you put fucking fire resist on your gear. I am not joking. All right, let's see. Win condition is to burst the target out, waiting for good RNG lay. So specifically, when you're playing a mage, what you're looking for is you sheep the target, you eat and drink, you stand up, and you do your first spell into the target. If that first spell that hits the sheep does not crit, there's not even a point for the mage to really consider continuing to try to burst in that target. They're a lot like a deep rep paladin that way, whereas the deep rep paladin hits the target first, and if he doesn't get a good proc on the first melee swing, he's not going to pull the trigger on any additional trinkets or anything else to really try to push the burst issue into the ground, which means that they're specifically looking for that first spell to crit the target. Well, if the first spell crits the target, then they're looking at the RNG lay. They're like, okay, at least we got the first crit. That's the part we know we can control. Let's see what the rest of the damage looks like, and if it looks good, I'll just pop this guy right here and right there, which we can see right here. This is very important to note because of how you counter mages. So you counter a mage with your own stun on their good RNG lays. So if you're in a sheep and you get hit with a spell and that spell crits you and it does a shit ton of damage, you immediately need to be reaching for your nade, you need to be reaching for your goblin mortar, you need to be reaching for your repent, you need to be reaching for your title charm, you need to be reaching for your goblin rocket helm, your goblin rocket boots, whatever, your healing potion, your whipper root, your nature swiftness, whatever the hell it is that you have got going on. This is another reason why goblin mortar is so amazing, because you can use it both offensively and defensively. You need to realize that that's what the mage is waiting for. He's waiting for that first spell to crit you. You are in super, super danger of death if that first spell has crit you, and you need to act accordingly. If that's something as simple as running away from the mage until he blinks after you and then you goblin mortar stun him, or you grenade stun him, or you title charm him, or you goblin rocket helm or something, yeah, he might, ice block cancel out of it and continue on trying to burst you out of existence. But that just means that you're reaching for the next thing in your toolkit. You're like, oh, you got out of the grenade? Okay, fine. Here, have a goblin mortar. I'm going to continue booking it. I'll just reach for my my major healing potion, my bubble, my whatever the hell it is. All right, especially fire. Do especially fire and fire resist due to it never being 0%. What the hell am I trying to say here? Blink costs 500 mana. Fire. I think I'm trying to say fire protection potion and fire resist due to it never being 0% mana. You can double stack major protection potions against a mage, and it gets kind of funky for them. So if you're dealing with a fire mage, greater frost protection potion is the potion you want to use. If you're dealing with a frost mage, you want to use a fire protection potion. Basically, you want to use the protection potion that they're not going to chew through super, super quickly or super, super instantly. But yeah, fire protection potions really screw over their burst pretty hard, but meh. Blink costs a mage 500 mana, so if you're not making a mage blink, you're doing it wrong. It is a shit ton of mana for a mage to blink. Super, super important that you make mages blink either in the chase after you or in the chase to get away from you. All right, moving on. They're also really susceptible to be geared swapped on. So you start fighting a mage with resistance gear. Again, follow the rules. Start by fighting them in resistance gear. Once they start getting low on mana and they're only surviving from drink to drink to drink, then you can swap into some more DPS-oriented gear and go after them. Again, we're talking unrestricted dueling, Mak'Goras, duels to the death, that kind of a thing. All right, priest. Oh boy, it's gonna be a long video. Scary racials. Yeah, they get some insane, crazy racials. Holy crap! So fighting one priest to another is a completely different animal. So the top priests are Night Elf. I'm not going to put Dwarf on the list, even though they do have Fear Ward. Technically, Dwarf is there, I suppose. Undead is there as well, and then probably the scariest of them all is the Troll. So trolls are terrifying because they get some extra dot shit going on. Maybe they're not super terrifying. I don't know. Night elves are one of the scariest priests to duel. If you see a night elf priest, that's a PvPer. That is not a PvEer. They are not fucking around. Shadow Belt Meld on a priest is cancerous ass. It's cancer on hunters for similar reasons, because they'll run off into Narnia and they'll go invisible and they'll start eating and drinking, and even with you kind of knowing where they are, they can get some extra ticks in and it makes it really real pain in the ass. But the other priests are equally annoying because they basically tell fear to get bent because of their racials. Really scary stuff. They're absolutely amazing in spirit gear. If you're a priest and you're not using spirit gear, you're kind of insane. Just because there's a lot of classes that can actually grind you into pulp if you don't have spirit gear. Priests are in a weird place because it's like they both don't mind their enemy to have spirit gear because it means they need less mana burns to get them down to a critical mana level. But at the same time, they have to keep mana burning the target, or the target will regenerate mana super fast. I'm talking like when you're level 60, you're getting something stupid like 100 mana per tick in Spirit Gear, which is like that's a ridiculous amount of MP5. That's let me think. That's 50 per second times. So that's like 250 MP5. And they can't cast spells because they don't have any mana, so they're just going to sit there and spirit regen in your face, and it's actually kind of terrifying. Which means they're going to get to be able to heal very, very quickly. They'll use major mana potions and night dragon fruit to very quickly get heals in. So how you beat priests as a paladin basically is they'll mana burn all your mana away, but then they have trouble keeping your mana at 0. It doesn't take very long before you can just use a dragon fruit to get a holy light off. If that holy light is a crit heal and it's a free crit heal, it's going to cost them a mana burn to get rid of it, which is super painful for the priest. The next thing you know, you're using a mana potion to top yourself off again, which is really annoying. You have bubble and bandage, which can keep you in the fight. And if you have any kind of spirit gear going on, God help the priest, or MP5, blah, 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 blah. But really, we just use, you get the idea. Those are the only takeaways from Paladin PvP that are viable outside of the class specifics. Fear Run, Drink, Mana Burn, Fear Run, Drink. They are super amazing at grinding people down. The only classes that can really mess with them in this context are Warlock to a degree. Druids can tango in the grinding game. What other classes can really mess with a priest in the grinding game? Hunters, yeah, because they're. I have it here somewhere. Yeah, in the weaknesses, their dispel is 258 mana. That's their biggest weakness. Is in order for them to dispel, they have to use a shit ton of mana to dispel. So Viper Sting really screws them over pretty hard. A bunch of other things that you think wouldn't be effective against them end up being effective because they have a super high mana cost on their dispel. They're very weak to resistances. You stack Shadow Resist against a priest, they're gonna hate their lives. Very, very suck for them. But again, if they're in Spirit Gear and they know what they're doing, they're gonna do some scary stuff to you. They're just gonna find their holy spells and be like, get bent. Can have mana issues of not being played with heavy Spirit Gear. Yeah. Alright, playstyle varies versus enemy. In general, they want to start being unkillable in Stamina Intellect Gear and then move into Stamina Spirit Gear and then grind targets into pulp. This is 100% the case. If they basically are grinding monsters, they fear you, they run away, they eat, they drink, they fear you, they run away, they eat, they drink. If they have Spirit Gear and they're in a dueling tournament and they're not allowed to eat and drink, it doesn't matter, they just keep running away, let Spirit doing its damn job. Super, super hard to put down if they're in Stamina Spirit Gear and are playing themselves correctly. The correct way to beat a priest is to wait for them to get low on mana, low on resources, and then to find a way to jump all over them and just beat them into the dirt. So that would be like we have down here in the counters. No good counters. Either have to burst them down or grind them using Shadow Resist Gear. Shadow Resist Gear is the only weakness other than their dispel cost issue. So here's how you grind them into pulp. Can use Mithril Insignia plus PvP Trinket plus a natural fear resist or other anti-fear abilities to get a very long period of time of target on them. This is the best kill window when resources are low. So if you try to sit on... basically, when they have like 20% mana and they're surviving on fumes and you're surviving on fumes and that kind of a scenario, now's the time to pull out the Mithril Insignia into PvP Trinket and ideally to wait for a natural fear resist before you go, it's go time, motherfucker, and just sit on them for like a full minute and grind them into pulp. That's how you do it as a shaman. That's how you do it as a druid. That's how you do it as a warlock. And that's even the messed up part, is that's how you do it as a warlock. Even a warrior, you're probably dead before you can even use this, but Mithril Insignia and PvP Trinket and stuff, even for warriors, isn't the worst idea in the world. You'd think you'd have enough fear resist, but priests take so fucking long to die. Holy shit. They're going to make you use it. What else we got going here? Next classes. Okay, Warlock and Shaman. All right, so I'm just going to read. Sustain, Warlock. Sustained and reset grinding monster. Super hard for most classes to burst out. Also can burst. Yeah. Warlocks, unless you specifically have a Dispel. So that's going to be not Dispel, Purge. They're called Purges. So Dispels are defensive and Purges are offensive. So for example, Shamans have Purge and Priests have Dispel. The Dispel of a Priest is both offensive and defensive, so it's simultaneously a Dispel and a Purge. It can be used offensively and defensively. The Shaman Purge can only be used offensively, and the Paladin Cleanse can only be used defensively. As a general terminology rule, any spell, any Dispel that's being used offensively, we call a Purge, and any spell that's being used defensively, we call a Cleanse. You follow me on this? Okay, cool. So sometimes you'll hear me say things like the priest is cleansing themselves or the priest is purging. Sometimes you'll hear me say, yeah, but that's the only weird one, right? Okay, so unless the target has the ability to purge, and the only targets that can really purge in this game are shamans and priests, warlocks are extraordinarily hard to put down. And we're specifically talking about the SL warlock. You can tell what kind of a warlock you're dealing with primarily by what kind of pet they are using. If the warlock is using a succubus pet, that is going to be a bursting warlock. They're going to come at you with a shit ton of shadow damage or a shit ton of fire damage, and they're going to try to delete you out of existence in a very, very short period of time. If they have a Void Walker or they have a Fell Hunter, they're almost always an SL Warlock, or they're just, a bursting hunter that has their void out or their fell hunter out for shits and giggles. But usually you have to worry about them being an SL warlock. Okay, super hard for most casters to burst out. Also, they can burst themselves. The really tanky warlocks cannot burst. Their burst is terrible. They just don't die, and they grind you into pulp over time. The warlocks that can burst have very low survivability, so if you can survive the burst, you can usually murder them pretty easily. That's the TLDR. They can't do both at the same time. All right, so Warlock, weaknesses. Can't naturally heal other than fear or drain life. Like fear, eat, drink, that kind of stuff. Voidwalker sack, fear reset, or spirit gear regeneration. So if they fear you and they just run around, don't even bother eating and drinking, they just run around. Because the Mak'Gora dueling circle is massive, and this is unrestricted dueling. Spirit gear actually does a lot of work for them as far as healing is concerned. Even while eating and drinking spirit gear, when you're sitting down, the healing effect is increased by 50%, so it'll do a lot of work. They're one of their main. This is a weakness. Yeah, they can't heal unless they're draining life or fearing and resetting, or they're spirit regenerating and running around with a chicken with their head cut off. Under normal dueling circumstances, this is this is a weakness of theirs because it's very easily countered by like skeleton pet summons, battle chicken, arcanite chicken summons. Basically, when you see the warlock casting a fear on you and you damn well know they're going for a reset, out should come your summon trinkets. And we're talking summons that take a significantly long time to kill. So that would be like your Arcanite Battle Chicken or your Battle Chicken or your Burlov Summoning Trinket or preferably be a Skeleton Pet Summon. Basically just something that's hard for them to kill while you're busy running around with the fear that'll keep them in combat. So you can get out of the fear and put them back in combat so you can interrupt this whole life cycle. Other weakness is their fear is a 20-yard range fear, and it's got a 1.5 second cast, meaning it's very easily outranged, even by paladins, which is kind of terrifying. Win conditions versus a warlock vary with their pet. Their base succubus has like 2k HP and no armor whatsoever. When they're a demonology warlock, they actually have some armor and their HP goes up to 2.5k, but generally speaking, anything that attacks them is going to die absolutely horribly. So if you see a succubus pet, it should be your first, the first order of business just to kill the succubus. If you see the succubus, it equals bursting. Void and Fell Hunter equal grinding. They're both really good for their own things. Warlocks technically have both a purge and they technically also have a cleanse, but that's only from their Fell Hunter's Devour magic. So they can order their Fell Hunter to remove a magical effect from the Warlock or remove it from the opposing enemy. But it's on and heal themselves, of course. Heal the Fell Hunter, that is. But it's got a relatively long, I think it's like 15 or 20-second cooldown for the Fell Hunter. I think it's 20-second cooldown or 30-second cooldown for the Fell Hunter, and there's going to be so many buffs on each class as in a Mak'Gora that it's not really going to be an issue. If they are Fell Huntering, you should definitely try to kill the Fell Hunter first. Soul-linked warlocks and demonology warlocks in general will have 2 pets. That's one of the biggest differences between the burst style and the non-bursting style is whether or not they have 2 pets. If you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, normally it's a 10-second cast to get another pet for a warlock, but demonology reduces that down to like a 2-second cast, but it's like an 8-minute cooldown, so they can go from one pet to another pet pretty damn quickly, but after that they won't have any more pets for like a million years. Best played Soul Link slash demo Warlock, Double Void Sack. No, that's Soul Link Demonology. They'll double Void Sack into mana slash drain with Spirit Gear, Grind Game, and they will just out survive anything that you're doing and grind you into pulp. An absolutely terrifying monstrous class to deal with. You can see here in the blue, it's like counter class by class if you can, and I've got can in caps. This spec is banned in most dueling tournaments for a reason. This is 100% true. The only natural predator for a demonology warlock is a paladin that knows what the hell they're doing. You get a paladin with Edward the Odd and Mithril Insignia trinket. And skeleton summons. They will eat a warlock's jujubes, and they will absolutely murder warlocks. The warlocks just die screaming. It's actually kind of hilarious how badly they do against a good paladin. But every other class in the game, they hate SL Warlocks. Absolutely hate fucking SL Warlocks. Holy shit. Don't have a lot of counters. Other top tier grinding classes, stacking shadow resistance, tend to work against them, however. So that would be Shaman, Priest, Druid. Mithril Insignia is an absolute must when dealing with Warlocks if you want to even have a chance of beating them. Gives you 30 seconds of Spirit of Fear immunity, but you have to be a blacksmith in order to use it. It can also be a little expensive to get up that high in blacksmithing in order to get your Mithril Insignia trinket. All right, moving on. Shaman. We should be closing in on an hour and getting done soon. Shaman, it has Purge, thank God. Anything that has Purge in Mak'Gora actually stands a chance against SO Warlocks and a bunch of other disturbing things that are possible in Mak'Gora tournaments. Why is this? Because you can remove all the stupid debuffs and the potions and the greater greater protection potions and all the stupid shit off of people because you can just purge, get the fuck out of here. So very quickly at the expense of mana, classes like Shaman and Priest can turn the Mak'Gora into a normal dueling scenario, but it's going to cost them something stupid like half their mana bar, which is kind of insane if you think about it. All right, so they're heavily armored, which is a massive bonus for a Shaman. They have range DP enough to be really good at both burst and grinding builds all at the same time, which is very dangerous. They're one of the only classes in the game that can actually pull this off. Warlocks kind of fit into the same category, but not super well. Their burst threat is linked to their ability to fear you, and their fearing you can be outranged so easily that it's usually not that big of a deal. Warlocks just have a really good grinding game against anything that can't cleanse stuff off of them, which incidentally, Shamans can't cleanse Warlock dots off of them, but they can purge the Void Walker pet sacks and all that stuff, meaning that Warlocks are significantly squishier against a Shaman. The scary thing about a Shaman is that they can play the I'm just going to let you beat on me tank game because they're heavily armored. They can heal themselves super well. They have a pretty damn good grinding game, meaning that they can run around, slow people, all that jazz, and grind on people pretty damn well. And even when they're playing their grinding game, they have a really, really good burst threat as long as they still have mana to burst on somebody. And that can play hell with somebody trying to fight them, because not only are you trying to sit on them and grind them down in a grinding game, like you physically want to be on top of them, but the problem is if you let your HP drop too low, they can just spin around and be like, ollie ollie oxen, bitch, and delete you out of existence. All right, so weaknesses. Has mana issues. Burst is weak to fire resist slash nature resistance gearing specifically, which is easy to get up to 100 plus from Maradon gearing alone. So Maradon gearing has a bunch of nature resist gear in there. You use like the double noxious trinkets, which are like 10 nature resistance each. It sounds like it's a horrible idea versus a shaman, but you get any kind of resistance gear versus a shaman, and they got nothing, man. So it's like has mana issues and is easily sat on and out DPS'd over time by classes that can survive their burst. Yeah, so any class that can survive their burst, and this is where the nature resistance comes in, can easily sit on top of a shaman and usually just grind them out over time. Shamans have a good grinding game, but they don't have that amazing of a kiting game. So, for example, all they can do is slow you, which means if you can slow them and you're physically on top of them, the next, like a warrior gets physically on top of a shaman, the warrior slows the shaman slows the warrior, and the next thing you know, the two of you are just stuck there in a grinding death match until one person dies. The same thing can happen with druid. The same thing can happen with warlock. The same thing can happen with mage and so forth and so on. Win conditions vary enemy by enemy, but usually being unkillable and or at first, and then when resources get low, swapping into stamina spirit gear, plus kiting and grinding play is the best. This is particularly noticeable since at any point in time you can threaten burst. The nature swiftness spec for the elemental shaman is by far the best spec because it can be used both defensively and offensively at a moment's notice, which is absolutely terrifying and a nightmare to try to play around from the other side of the spectrum. Um, if you don't know what the hell that burst looks like, I'll give you an example. So I've seen elemental shamans, nature swiftness elemental shamans, so they cast lightning bolt, and then they nature swiftness out chain lightning into earth shock, and they can do so you just get hit with all three of these spells instantaneously, and I've seen it crit me up to like 7,500 on Era. Like they just obliterate you out of existence. So despite the fact they don't have the free crit damage, so they can't lightning bolt chain lightning earth shock, and the chain lightning earth shock is a free crit for them. They can macro out the nature swiftness, so the next thing you know, you get hit with three spells instantaneously, and it's actually kind of nightmare mode. Or they can use it to heal themselves, one of the two, right? Okay, weaknesses. Hard to counter purge. Shamans hate nature resist anywhere near 100 nature resist, as they have no other good ranged grinding abilities, which is true. Their fire resist capabilities are terrible. All they basically have to try to pepper you with is nature spells at range. Their frost damage is okay, but it's not the best thing in the world. The problem they have with nature resist is there's a lot of nature resistance checks inside of their burst effectively. NR plus grinding them down is usually best, even in the mirror matchup. Maradon, Nature Resist, Spirit Gear, no joke. Yeah, if you have one shaman that's running around like not respecting, let's say you have a shaman matchup, and one shaman has stamina, spirit gear, and the other shaman just has whatever gear he thinks is best. You're good. All one shaman has to do is survive the burst and heal himself up, and the other shaman is going to eventually start running low on mana, and he's just going to lose the grinding game. Nature Resist really helps with this if you're allowed to gear swap at all. All right, moving on. But yeah, you really need class-specific counters against shamans. It's one of the harder matchups to deal with, because you're basically not in a Mak'Gora, you're actually in just a PvP duel. So any guide that works on a shaman in a PvP duel is usually going to work in a Mak'Gora. But their primary weakness is their mana bar. Mana bar is their weakness. So you need to play around running them low on mana and then having a battle plan for how to kill them once they're low on mana. But if you're trying to tango with a shaman when they're high mana, God help you. All right, last two classes. Hunter. 40-yard range physical damage. They have a great burst, and their burst variance is quite wide. They have a great grind with Viper Sting. So there's a lot of classes that they can grind down fairly easily, even with rank 1 Viper Sting. A lot of the classes can remove Viper Sting, but even the classes that can cleanse away Viper Sting have issues with just the mana cost trade. So the only class in the game that can actually shrug off Viper Sting from a hunter is Paladin. Every other class kind of has issues with it. With the even shamans have issues with it because they have mana issues in general. Okay. Weaknesses. Needs high skill to play. Yes, that's a major weakness. Hates armored targets and laughs that laugh at Viper Sting. So that's Shaman, Paladin, and possibly Druid. I don't know if Druid have a poison cleanse, but if they do have a poison cleanse, then they're going to be perfectly happy dealing with stupid-ass Viper Stings. Or maybe the sheer act of them being in a bear causes Viper Sting not to do anything anymore. You'll notice that priests are not on this list. The reason why priests are not on this list is, again, their cleanse is 258 mana, and Viper Sting is like 100 and rank 1 Viper Sting is like 120 mana or 100 mana or something stupid like that. So it's just not cost effective for them to cleanse the poison away at all, and so the hunter gets ahead. Hunters are susceptible to be grinded and or bursted out. Yeah, it's a really big problem with them. The only way they can heal is by eating and drinking and bandaging and eating and drinking and bandaging. And this means that any class that can dot them up at range and survive their nonsense is in a really prime position to kill the hunters. So there's a lot of classes that can actually do that. They hate heavily armored classes just because they really struggle in putting them down in the dirt. But more accurately, that's heavily armored classes that can heal themselves, but since warriors can heal themselves with Diamond Flask, that also counts. They got Viper Sting. Okay, so their battle plan is to Viper Sting you, kite you out, and basically grind you down into a burst. Hunters have a shockingly good burst if they're willing to wear the trinkets and pull the trigger on it. Hunter hard counters some classes but struggles with others. They are dupe killers in my book, aka they really kill people who don't respect their burst range. So there's a lot of classes, like I watch a lot of paladins that fight other hunters, and they press W versus the hunters while their HP gets lower and lower and lower, and they're thinking to themselves, I'll heal myself at 60% life, not realizing that that's within kill range for a hunter. And so then they'll go to heal themselves at 60% life, and next thing they know, they get goblin mortared and fucking blown up on. And they're like, oh, how'd you kill me from 60%? I'm heavily armored. And it's like, bro, they can do that. You need to respect their burst range potential. It's actually kind of terrifying, but they can't do it very often. It's not like other burst classes who can burst on you and then wait a little bit and burst on you again, then wait a little bit and burst on you again. Hunter burst is very, very much linked to long trinket cooldowns and their mana bar. All right, counter. You counter them by keeping your HP high at all times. You got to respect their damn burst. Wait till Hunter is low mana because, again, their burst is linked to their mana bar. It's linked. Damn it, I could keep having to cough. Give me a sec here. I'm at that point where my voice is starting to go and me trying to talk just isn't going to work, period. All right, almost done. Let's keep going. Need to slow down, I think, in the talking. Offensive plays are having very well thought out plan to kill them. Yeah. You have to wait till they're low mana and they're low resources. Keep an eye on their burst. Like, is their grenade on cooldown? Is their grenade not on cooldown? Have they even used their burst yet? Their burst is linked specifically to a trinket that gives them like an extra shot. I think it's a ZG trinket Go ahead and look it up. A hunter-specific class trinket. Plan to kill them in a burst. The other way to do it is to plan to kill them in a burst or in a semi-grinding burst, meaning that you've worn their HP down over the course of like 2 burst attempts, so that in the second or third burst attempt they die. That's basically how it is. So it'd be like I jump on them as a paladin, I drop them to 20% life. They go, oh shit. They trap me in an ice block and they eat and drink, and then I come out of the ice block and they're only like half life still, and I'm just pulling the trigger on some YOLO practically. I'm like, lol, you're half life, and I jump all over them. Use this or that, use bubble, use this thing, use that thing, so they can't trap you again. You just beat them to death. That's definitely one way to do it. The other way is if they can't eat or drink, equals you can grind them down easily and they die. So in the upcoming Mak'Gora tournament, just timing them out in the first duel and the second duel, they only get 3 eating and drinkings. They're going to die horribly in the second duel. Not a damn thing they can do about it. Stamina spirit gear really helps hunters a lot, because if they can't eat and drink, and even when they are eating and drinking, they can use the stamina spirit gear to regenerate a lot of mana, to regenerate a lot of HP. Other than some solid DPS gear for a hunter, stamina spirit gear is probably your next best option. All right, last but not least is the druid. Damn it. All right, druid, ranging, kiting, grinding, monsters, running, plus running and resistance gear. They can grind anything down in the entire game except paladin. They just end up taking a draw versus a paladin, because paladins can't catch them, but they can't kill the damn paladin. If you are a druid and you haven't watched the Tips Out deep dive with soda popping, you definitely should. The soda popping dueling style is probably the most terrifying. Even though if you ever watch Soda Pop in duels, he's kind of an arrogant dummy and gets himself killed a lot, but we'll talk about that when we get down at the bottom here. If you're not doing the soda popping way, there either better be you're either doing it wrong, or there better be a damn good reason, is basically all I'm saying. All right, druids. Need mana to get out of slows. Here's their weaknesses, and time to work. Meaning that they're not doing any damage without mana. And druids are not all that mana efficient unless you're really, really min-maxing the class as a whole. Again, watch the soda popping video. The TLDR on it is you use max ranks of a spell to put the max rank dot on the target, but then you use like rank 1s of the spell to keep the dot up. I don't know if that still works, but you can hear Soda Papa talking about it in the deep dive. They have mana issues if they're not wearing spirit gear. Highly advised you wear spirit gear as a druid against any and all targets that you can easily grind down and win relatively easily against. If they're dealing with a target that you can't grind down, which is going to be super, 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 super rare, then you either just can't kill them, or you need to try to kill them in a burst, which means you're going to have to be a boomkin and gearing specifically, and that's just a nightmare scenario. Don't Mak'Gora them. Cannot get out of of Slow. There's an item in the game called Mug of Slow, level 42, blue item. You can buy it off the auction house. It's got a 5% chance on hit to slow the target for 10 seconds. There is no way to get out of that slow virtually in the entire game, other than like Bubble and Freedom and Bop and Ice Block. And possibly maybe like a free action potion or a living action potion or something stupid like that. The Mug of Hurt Slow gives no fucks. If you put it on the druid, they're going to hate their guts. It's about the only thing that actually annoys the crap out of them. Okay, let's see. Most druid matchups are a gear check. This is 100% true. You can easily both be unkillable and grind enemies down as a druid if played properly. That's why, again, the spirit gear, stamina spirit gear is highly suggested, because you got all the spirit in the world, which means you're going to survive pretty easily. If you need a bigger, deeper mana bar, you can easily find a major mana potion. It's not that big of a deal. And you can survive enemy shenanigans and then get your grind game on, and stamina spirit gear is by far the best gear you can possibly wear as a druid for the grind game. Possibly even better than having spell power gear in the grand scheme of things. Follow the rules in part 2 of the guide, basically. First be unkillable, then go into spirit slash resistance gear and lean on your enemies. Few classes can handle this, especially if you're willing to gear swap. You should gear swap as a druid because you're fast as fuck, boy. So gear swapping is definitely 100% in your wheelhouse, and you should do it. Definitely specialize your gear in unrestricted dueling as a druid. Other than the Mugahurt, okay, let's talk about the counters. Other than the Mugahurt plus speed boosts for time on target, the only way to beat a druid, so you can actually chain together with Mugahurt, and this is what paladins do, is we chain together with Mugahurt and like rocket boots and nifty stopwatch and a bunch of other stupid things like frost oil on our weapon, plus Mugahurt, plus chili weapon enchant on the Mugahurt, to just chain together this time on target on the druid where they just can't really get away from you for a long period of time. You try to grind them into pulp. But of course, the counter to this is the druid keeps their mana up high enough that it's not really an issue. Because you can only go offensive with that if the druid drops below like 20%, 30% or 20% mana. And an experienced druid is wary of a paladin doing this. But if they let their mana drop too low, you can jump all over them and they'll be like, oh shit, I can't get away from this paladin. Oh, fucking out of mana. Oh, God. And they just kind of die horribly. Reckoning also is the bane of druids' existences. It's the only other way to really kill them, but that they can play around it pretty easily. Although a lot of them fail it, which I don't know why, but it is what it is. Or to have burst ready for when they get cocky. This is the other thing that happens to druids. Many druids die because they wanted to demonic rune and it crit them. Like just get demonic rune on cooldown. They got plenty of health to do it, so they might as well do it now. But it crits them and then they die. I'm definitely looking at Soda for this. It's how he got knocked out of a dueling tournament one time. He's like, I can demonic rune here, and then it crit damaged him, and then he died shortly after because he's stupid and he didn't actually have to demonic rune there. Or you get 2 or more spirit ticks before healing, so that they like to play really close to the sun on this one. They let their health drop a little bit too low, and you've been holding a burst or a kill combo, and then it comes your way and you die. So by far the best thing to do with a druid is just play it safe the entire time, and you'll actually kill people pretty easily. Anyways, this video is getting rather long, and I'm in the video here, and Deus Holt, boys.